For decades, Johnny Rotten, the man who tore through the music world with a snarl and a scream, was known for hating just about everything. From pop stars to rock legends, the Sex Pistols frontman made a career out of saying what others were too afraid to. But behind that punk rage and those unforgettable insults, Johnny has always had a deep love for real, authentic rock music. Now, at 69, the man once known for chaos and rebellion has finally surprised fans by naming the 5 rock albums that truly shaped his soul. They aren't what you'd expect, but they reveal a side of Rotten that few have ever seen. This is the untold story of Johnny Rotten's 5 favorite rock albums. 1. The Doors. The Doors, 1967. Johnny Rotten shocked fans when he admitted that one of his earliest musical obsessions was Jim Morrison and The Doors. As a teenager in London, long before the safety pins and sneers, Rotten would sit in his tiny flat, spinning The Doors' debut album on repeat. He said, "Jim Morrison wasn't fake. He was poetic, dangerous, unpredictable, everything I wanted music to be." Tracks like Break On Through and The End hit him hard. The darkness, the honesty, and that feeling of rebellion, it all planted the seed for what would later become punk spirit. Rotten once joked, the Doors were the only band that could make chaos sound intelligent. And for him, that combination of brains and attitude became the gold standard. 2. Iggy and the Stooges, Raw Power, 1973. If there's one album that truly shaped the sound of punk rock, it's this one. When Johnny Rotten first heard Raw Power, he felt like someone had finally ripped the mask off rock music. The guitars were filthy. The vocals were violent. The drums sounded like explosions. It wasn't pretty, and that's exactly why he loved it. Rotten has said many times that Iggy Pop was a true original, someone who gave him the courage to be ugly, honest, and loud. He called Raw Power a declaration of war against phoniness. Songs like Search and Destroy and Gimme Danger weren't just tracks. They were marching orders for an entire generation of misfits. Without Iggy, Johnny admitted, there might never have been a Sex Pistols. 3. Captain Beefheart, Trout Mask Replica, 1969. Now this choice confused even hardcore fans, but for Johnny Rotten, it makes perfect sense. Trout Mask Replica isn't an easy listen. It's noisy, chaotic, and completely unpredictable. But that's exactly why Rotten fell in love with it. He once said, "It's the sound of freedom. It breaks every rule," and laughs at you for expecting sense. Captain Beefheart's bizarre rhythms and surreal lyrics opened Rotten's mind. It taught him that music didn't have to be clean or polished. It just had to be true. It's easy to hear that influence in Pistols' songs like Bodies and Pretty Vacant. The same sense of madness, control, and rebellion beats through both records. Rotten even played Trout Mask Replica in early rehearsals to test if bandmates could handle real creativity. Most couldn't, and that's how he knew he was on the right path. 4. Tago Mago, 1971. Here's one that only true music obsessives know. Johnny Rotten was a massive fan of German experimental rock, the movement known as krautrock, and among those artists, Can stood above the rest. Their 1971 album Tago Mago was unlike anything the British scene was doing at the time. Long, hypnotic jams, tribal drums, and strange shifting vocals. Rotten called it mind music for people who hate hippies. It inspired him to think of punk not just as rebellion, but as art. He loved how Ken created music that ignored trends and focused on pure instinct. Years later, Rotten would bring that same freedom into his post-Pistols project. Public Image LLC, he said, without Ken, Peel would never have existed. 5. Neil Young, Tonight's the Night, 1975. The last album on his list surprised even his closest fans. Johnny Rotten, the king of anger and anarchy, picked one of the most emotional and fragile rock albums ever made, Neil Young's Tonight's the Night. Why? Because it's brutally honest. The album was written after Neil's close friends died of drug overdoses, and instead of hiding the pain, he poured it all out. Rotten said, That record showed me you can scream with sadness as loud as with rage. He admired how Neil didn't care about sounding perfect. He cared about telling the truth. And for Johnny, truth was always the only thing that mattered in music.
Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon.